Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to connect your current code to something called version control, which will basically let you save your code in a new space. And then we're going to connect that version control to a web hosting service, which will let you share your code so that you can give a URL to all of your friends and they can actually see your project published in the wild. The first step to understand is what version control is. This is like when you go into Google Docs and you click version history and you can see all the versions of your code. What's different in programming, your version control system is set up so that you can have many programmers in different places all working on code and then simultaneously merging their changes. So GitHub is what's called a repository. It's a kind of a central location where lots of programmers would share their work. In our case, we're just going to connect repl.it to GitHub. It'll just be you for now. This isn't a team project. So just you saving your work from one place to another. But it's important to understand that you could push your work up to GitHub and then you could later pull it back in. So you could have multiple different editors or locations and different programmers collaborating, and they all get to see their changes come together in one place, and that's what version control is. The third step is going to be signing up for web hosting. Netlify is the service we'll use, but there are competitors you could use, so that's just the brand I'm going to happen to teach you. You could use others. And in this sort of new world of hosting, what they do is they point directly to your source control. So when you push an update to GitHub, Netlify sees it, builds the project, and updates what's on the website so that anybody seeing your website gets the changes. Okay, so step one, here we are in repl.it. I have a project. This is just the template project. And what I'm going to want to do first is connect repl.it to my version control. So there's a little version control icon over on the left, and I'm going to click that icon. And when I do it for the first time, it's going to ask me if I want to connect it to, well, first create a repo. That's like creating the version control. And second, connect it to GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and click connect to GitHub. And in this video, I'm going to assume that you don't already have an account. So actually, before we can get this working, we'll have to create. So you'll have to go ahead and create a new account. When we get to GitHub, you give it an email, an account, password. That'll bring us to an account wizard, and you're going to go ahead and fill in your email address. You can put in whatever name you're going to put in. Once you're done with all of that, which you'll have to remember, you'll have to authorize directly to Google. So you got to go back to repl.it again. Say once again, go back and click connect to GitHub. Once you've created this account, when you do it this time, back to repl.it, it'll actually be back in repl.it. You'll go ahead and click that button again and give a name says connect to GitHub repo. This time it'll just work because your browser is already logged into GitHub or whatever you'd like to call it. You can make it public or private. You can leave these private if you like, and go ahead and save it. That's going to create a new project in Git, and it's going to commit your code from repl.it up to GitHub. There'll then be a new step each time you want to save your work to GitHub where you click publish to GitHub. Now we can go to netlify.com for step 3 of this project. So we're going to have to create yet another account. When we get to Netlify, we're actually going to use GitHub as your login, so you don't have to create 2 new logins. At Netlify, you're going to go ahead and click Create Account. And you can say you want to use GitHub as your login because you just created a GitHub login. And go ahead and authorize Netlify to connect to GitHub. What's nice now is this will let Netlify see all of your GitHub projects. You can easily publish any project you do in GitHub using Netlify. We're going to go ahead. Netlify will ask you for some information. You can tell it you're a student and so on and so forth. And you can ignore most of these details. All right, then you're going to say to import an existing project from Git. You can connect back to GitHub again. This will be yet another authorization to say that Netlify can see your projects. Once it's authorized, it's going to show you a list of your projects. At first, you should just have the one, so it'll be easy to find. All right, and then you're going to see your existing project, and you can choose that project. Okay, now the one thing you have to change here is the build command is going to become npm run build. The published directory remains dist. And you can say deploy site. And Netlify will generate a random URL for your website. You'll be able to change that later if you like in settings. And it's going to start building your project right away. Assuming your project is straightforward, which it should be from my template, that build is going to work. There can be issues depending on the technology stack you have, and the building could be complicated. It didn't publish instantly, so now I'm just going to wait a minute. You can go in and actually see the history of deploys, so I can see that it's still actually building. I can watch that build process go. This is all stuff you don't really know about yet, so you can mostly ignore this, but that would give you log information if you had a problem. And now it actually is built and hosted. All right, now I'm going to show you how we make a change. So when this project is first built, I noticed that the tab says just like vite app instead of saying, my drawing program. That's kind of lame. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So to make a change, I have to go back to my programming editor. That's in repl.it. That's not on Netlify, and it's not on GitHub itself. So I'm going to go back to repl.it and back to my files in repl.it. And this is a change I have to make in index.html. There's a title tag, and I'm just going to change the title of my app to what I want the new title to be. So I'll go ahead and change the title. And that immediately changes in the repl.it editor, but it didn't change what was in GitHub, and it didn't change what was published. So if I want to make those changes go up, I have to click over to version control, and version control will show me how many changes I've made since I last committed. This is kind of like saving. Repl.it auto saves, but not to GitHub. When I click commit and push, that commits my changes, and those will actually get pushed up to Netlify now. And assuming that none of them break the build process, which shouldn't happen now, but you can make breaking changes. So it's going to show me in Netlify that it's building the new changes, and it usually takes probably under a minute for a simple project. As your projects get more complicated, it might take 5 or 10 minutes, but it is a very fast process. It's going to rebuild, and now the tab says sample drawing game. So I've already gone ahead and published my first change. Finally, let me just show you what your source code looks like on GitHub. If you just go directly to github.com, you can actually go and navigate all your projects on GitHub, and it has its own little folder structure, and it'll show you every file that you've committed that's part of your project. And for each file, you can see the last time you made a change to that file. So I can see, for example, that I changed index.html 1 minute ago. And you can click into those files, and you can actually look at the history of your changes. So it shows me, oh, my last commit was 1 minute ago. When I click on that commit, I can see the one line of code that changed 1 minute ago. This is extremely helpful when you have more complicated projects in the future. So actually learning GitHub is something I often don't teach till more advanced classes, but here we're just using it for publishing. But if you want to start using GitHub for your projects, it makes it wonderful to be able to go back and figure out what you did wrong, what you changed, why something broke. It is a very powerful tool. All right, I think we're all set.